Screen. Okay. So we started this Shaila last week. Sheila. There we go. There we go. Misha nitratze liot arev. Guy agrees to be a co-signer. V'kodem sheyitain hamalva hakesef leloiva hitcharei ta'arev. And so before the loan was made, the guarantor decides to pull out. Why? Because he realizes after speaking to his wife, like we said, although that's not part of the shaila, but in all likelihood, that's what happened. She said, "What are you, crazy? That you're putting your neck out, sticking your neck out for that guy. You know what happened last year or 2 years ago." Da, 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 da. So he realizes that he's made a mistake. Morning. And so he realizes he's going to be on the hook. Is he allowed to back out of the deal? Oh, let's say they already made a kinyan where the guy committed himself to be the guarantor. And now he realizes that I think I may have been in that situation before. I never made an actual kinyan, but um, but I may have given a verbal guarantee. I don't remember the details, but you can definitely hear this happening in a situation where you really do mean to be kind to the person, and then you realize this is a huge loan. In all likelihood, he's never gonna gonna be able to pay it back. I don't feel that I should be on the hook for this. So what's the halacha? Can you back out or can you not back out?
This is before the loan is.
It's before it's before the money has been transferred. But there's already been a kinyan. There's already been a transaction made to commit yourself. Either you signed a piece of paper that you're going to be the guarantor, or you made kinyan in front of witnesses. So the answer is Mishanit Ratzeliot Ariv Kodem Shitin Hamal Hamos Lolova Yochel Lachzer Ha'ariv Mahaskamosu La'arevus. He says it is legal, even though you've already agreed to be a guarantor, to withdraw your commitment Abafilu Kanamiyado, even if you've already made a kinyan, so long as the loan has not been made yet. Ve'ein chiluk bazeh bein ariv stam ola ariv kablon shnehem yicholim lachzor bahem. And it makes no difference what level of ariv you are, whether you're a regular ariv or an ariv kablon. Remember, an ariv kablon is the guy who says you can come to me first. You don't even have to go to the debtor. Va'afil, like a co-borrower. Va'afilu im nitchayev ha'ariv al yidei shtar kol sha'adayin lo kibel haloiv ma'osav yachol lachzor. And this is true even if a contract was signed. As long as the loan has not yet been effected, you're allowed to withdraw. I wonder if that's true in secular law. But he bases this. What is this based on? This is based on the Tur from the Chuvas Harif and the Rashba and the Yad Ramah and the Shulchan Aruch itself paskins. Says it explicitly. Even if a kinyan was already made, he can withdraw his commitment. Vahatam kasuf bisma sham the kinyan below based in chashuv ka'arevus shehi asmachted lo kani. The reason is because since this was done outside of Beis Din, it's considered to be a guarantorship, which is not a serious commitment, so long as it has not been enacted in Beis Din. Ki im mitam da'agav dehimne v'nasan al yadamos gomar v'shi beit nafshe. He says the only time a person makes a mental commitment to pay back the loan is if cash has already changed hands. But as long as cash has not changed hands, a person is not fully committed mentally to guarantee a loan.
Does he need to pay for any expenses that maybe they would?
It could be that if there were expenses incurred through setting him up as a guarantor, or if the borrower or the lender can claim damages, then that would be a separate issue.
Would he need to have witnesses that he declined the guarantor? I mean, because it said even if he had signed it.
Even if he had signed, I guess he has to bring a declaration. He has to have either a signed declaration or witnesses stepping forward to disclose to the lender that he's no longer committing to be a guarantor. How that notification comes about is not clear to me. But it would seem to me that as long as he's even just making it known to the lender that he's withdrawing his guarantorship, unless the lender says to himself, "Well, I've got the documentation, I've got the loan guaranteed, I'm going to make the loan anyway," then he would have to provide evidence. Because what if the lender puts forth the money anyway to the borrower, even though the guarantor says, stop, I'm pulling out. Well, no, there's no evidence of that. So I can pretend that it didn't happen if I'm the lender. So I guess you'd have to cover your bases as a guarantor if you've already signed.
I think in secular law, it could be a firm deal, even though the money hasn't been advanced, if there's consideration given all the way around, or if there's reliance. It could also be this thing called the estoppel, the promissory estoppel. You promise to do something and someone relies on that to their detriment. Court may say you're not allowed to resile from that. You can't change your mind. So
What was that word? Resile?
resile,
Resile.
right, withdraw your consent.
RESILE.
Resile. Yeah, that's estoppel. The court may say it may not be a deal, but we're not letting you back out because someone's relied on that to their detriment, and that's not fair. So the court could stop it from you resiling. Yeah, that's a real thing.
And what's the noun of resile? Resiliation?
I don't think. Just-
I've never heard that word
Yeah,
before.
it comes with estoppel. You're
Yeah.
stopped from resiling your position or your consent.
Interesting.
Even if the person's financial situation changed, and what you have to be in a base then, what relevance does that have?
Apparently, once it's done in a base, then it becomes
Let's not look at to the person's financial position. If the person legitimately something happened financially is not in a position to make the guarantee, and everything was straight, and he had good intentions, and something didn't come through, and he's not allowed to. So firstly, what difference would it make? You're in a basin or in someone's backyard,
because
and the person's financial situation changed, and he's on and it's the change.
a lot of things change in life, but once you make a commitment, a financial commitment is a financial commitment. It's no different if you're a guarantor than if you're a borrower in that sense. If I borrow money and then my financial situation changes and I can't pay back the loan, you can't use that as an excuse to exempt yourself.
No, but once you've taken it, it's a different story. This is prior to taking.
Right. So that's the distinction. The distinction is that a guarantor is not fully committed until the money changes hands, mentally, even if he signed a piece of paper.
That's what I see is that the signing of the paper is differentiated by its security compared to the base thing. I mean, if this loan was guaranteed in the base thing, sounds like you've got that out.
Correct. It's like getting something certified by the court.
Right.
Which basically means
even
right. Normally, that's legally binding for all other things, but since there was no consideration here, which is the term that Marv used, that's a term I'm familiar with. Consideration means that there's some kind of transfer of value in exchange for my guarantorship. So the fact that I've signed a piece of paper or I've given my word is not, there's no consideration there because there's been no exchange of money. And that's the reason why a guarantor can basically argue, look, there was nothing that changed hands. It's all pie in the sky until the loan is made. And therefore, that's the argument that the Shulchan Aruch is making. Even when you made a kinyan, even when you signed a piece of paper. So V'hareza chazar bo ve'enu mevakeshim nusei. So hold on a second. I'm skipping. Ve'atam. So he says, Lo kanikim mitam da'agav dehimne v'nasan al yado mos gomer b'shibeit nafshe. So that the fact, you see, what is the consideration when you're a guarantor? The consideration when you're a guarantor is that the lender trusts you as a guarantor. The reason he's making the loan is because of you. So he's giving you that sense of prestige, I guess would be the word. He's awarding you prestige, and that's the consideration. So in exchange for that prestige, you can indebt yourself and you cannot resile at that point. Uchamoshe kasuv bereish simin kuf chavtes. V'hareze chazar bo ve'enu mevakeshim nusei. So, but in a case where the money hasn't yet changed hands, the guarantor says, I don't want your prestige. I don't want that, the fact that I don't want your reliance upon me. Masha enkein ba'arev deboikin miyad shekana miyadu nigmar ha'inyan mishum hachi mahani, let's just see here. Behakinyan vafilu beli based in chashuv b'tzirufim nusei shekiblu la'arev. He says, but in a case where the money has changed hands, so then the guarantor has received the prestige, and therefore it's legally binding.
So the completion of the transaction is actually the passing of the money to the loan, or the completion of the loan. Sorry.
The money.
Yeah.
That's different, once the money has been.
Right, no, that's what they're saying. Once the money's been transferred, the guy's already.
It's a done deal.
You're committed, the guy, the borrower, sorry, the lender has understood you're going to support, you're going to back up the.
So now the retraction or the resiling, how does it have to be done? So he writes in this paragraph, he says, V'im hachazarat tzricha liot davka bifnei hamalve, o sheyeda hamalve mechazarato, nechleku bazeh ha'achronim. He says, does it have to be done, this resiling, does it have to be done in the presence of the lender or not? So this is something that is debated by the Achronim. Ayin Mahar Shadam, Choshen Mishpat, etc. He refers this to the Mahar Shadam. V'ayin Berech Lechem, okay, Baruch HaShulchan. Ule'inyan halva keshekasav haloi v'shtar b'chasimas yada v'zeh al pi tzivoy hamalve. Now, regarding a loan, where the lova is expected to write up a promissory note with his signature. Now, a lender always has the right of resiling. In other words, a lender says, okay, I'll lend you $1,000, and then he changes his mind. Even if the lova drew up paper with his signature to commit himself to pay back the $1,000, and he's prepared to deliver that upon receiving the $1,000, the malved always has the right to withdraw and to resile at any time before he's made the loan. And I guess when you put it into that context, it makes sense why the guarantor has a right to resile. Okay. All right, are we okay with this? Does that make sense? Okay.
In the concept of feeling prestigious, I don't think Ron feels prestigious that he didn't get his money back that he signed.
So it's the prestige is not the getting having to pay. The prestige
The fact that you were chosen
is the fact that the lender basically says, the only reason I'm extending this loan is because of Ron Becker. And so now Ron feels like, wow, it's like getting the Shlishi Aliyah.
It's
You
like,
know?
it's like getting a triple.
Okay, you can have the sushi.
You'd rather have hot dog.
Galila.
Triple A plus credit rating.
All right. Next, She'ela. Malva shehitna im ha'arev mimi she'erza efra mimenu tchila. Okay, now, the Malva makes the following stipulation with the guarantor. I want to make you into an Arev Kablan. He basically says, if I want to come to you first, I have a right to do that. If I want to go to the borrower, I have a right to do that. I can choose whichever one I want. Im Amar hadvarim ba'al peh, o shahosif hamalva b'shtar lashon zeh v'hiskim lachtom ha'arev al zeh, ha'im yachol lihipara me ha'arev techila, o av shahosif b'dvarav mimisha erza efra, ena yachol litvor et ha'arev techila kol zman sheyesh nechasim l'loha. So the question is, what if this text was added to the shtar?
After signing
And the guarantor agrees to sign it. Okay? But it was added at the last minute and the guarantor signed it. Okay, so the question now is, does he indeed have the right to demand payment as a first resort by going directly to the Arev? Or do we say no? He can only collect first from the debtor, the borrower, if the borrower has assets.
That happens in employment contracts all the time. In the middle of an employment deal, the employer says, I want more hours from you, or I want to change, this or that, and that's the guy agrees. There are cases that say that's not binding because there's no fresh consideration for the employee agreeing to do that. It's only for him, right? So that would be unenforceable for lack of fresh consideration.
Even if the guy signed it.
Yeah.
And the consideration meaning that he didn't have enough
What
time
do
to
you, it's
think
the
about
quid
it.
pro quo, what do you get back? Making me do more work, no more pay.
You had agreed to pay me X amount of salary for X amount of hours, and now you're changing the terms at the last minute. You're giving me the same salary and you want more hours.
Same thing here, the consideration for upping them to a married debtor.
But the only difference here based on the last commentary we had is that he signed it after he signed the fact, and it's after the transactional money's been done. So.
No, here
He
the
signed it.
loan hasn't happened yet here.
No, it says, I thought we got to the point where everything, now he wants to collect from him first. So that means.
Yeah,
the
but
money must have been done.
no, the loan hasn't been made yet. They
The deal.
Yeah,
they drew up papers. The guy agreed to a guarantor, and now that they're ready to sign the papers, the lender says, I'm adding one stipulation.
Yeah.
And that is that I can go and
I can
collect
collect
from the
from
guarantor
anyone.
first.
But are we discussing whether the adding of the paragraph is legally binding? Are we discussing that he wants to go and collect the money first? The loan's due. Who do I go to? What right does he have to go to that person first? The guarantor or the borrower?
Yeah, that's the question.
But I'm saying, at what stage of this transaction are we set? If we're at the beginning and no money's transferred, then
We're at the beginning. We're at the beginning. There's been no money that's transferred. If the guarantor agrees to it and then the loan is made, what's the halacha?
So he can get out. He can say, I don't want to do it.
But the loan has been made already.
Well, then that was, then I go to my point. If the loan's been made, then the star stands.
Okay, so Doug, you hold the star stands. Okay, Marv argued that maybe the star doesn't stand because there was no additional consideration.
Is there a concept of independent legal advice in halacha?
Is there
Concept of independent legal
Sure,
advice?
sure.
So what independent, this is done at the last second, he's just, oh, yeah, sure, maybe he doesn't know.
What do you mean? Can a guy get off by saying I didn't have
understand
independent
to-
consult?
to-
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's such a concept. In other words, the halacha doesn't entitle you to a lawyer. That's why we're studying Choshen Mishpat, because every person is obligated to know what he's doing if he's going to enter into financial commitments. You can't say, "Oh, I didn't have my lawyer with me, so even though I borrowed $1
Well,
million,
the guy is just
I don't have to pay
he's
it."
not, he's not, he doesn't know how to learn, he doesn't know about the law, he's just being a nice guy.
So he should consult with his halachic expert before he enters into any kind of
But it's
agreement.
secular law, that would stand, wouldn't it? That would not have
Yeah,
independent
even
legal advice.
independent legal advice, they don't have an inherent right to it unless there's some questionable things going on in the deal.
Right, they try to sneak it
They're
in.
on notice now, they try to sneak it in.
So tshuva, hitna hamalva im haarev, mimisha erza efra. So if that was the stipulation before the loan was made, who I can collect from whomever I wish, yachol lihipara me haarev tchila, afilu yesh lo nechasim leloiva. Then once that commitment is made by the guarantor, then that's an Ariv Kablan, and the creditor can collect from whichever party he wants, even if the borrower has assets. The yesh cholkim b'sovrim davka kishein lo v'nachasam yachol lihipara me ha'arev tchila. There are those who disagree, and they say that even though that's contained within the shtar, nonetheless, the creditor has to go to the lova first. ומכל מקום, גם החולקים מודים שאם אומר בפירוש ממי שארצה אפר תחילה, יכול לגבוס מן הערב אפילו יש ללא ונכסים ידועים. But nonetheless, even those who disagree will agree in a case where there's a public declaration made at the time of the signing of the papers, then he can collect from the guarantor first, even if even if the borrower has known assets, like he has a company or he has real estate or cash, whatever he's
So in
got.
that case, if you were the guarantor, it would behoove you to have an additional shtar that says that basically if I get asked to pay first, then here's something in writing that he's got to get it from the borrower, cover himself, because otherwise he's exposed, right? I mean.
Well, a guarantor is always exposed.
No,
right?
but he's exposed to the point that. What right does he have after he's paid? Let's say he pays $1,000 and the borrower actually has the assets, but it was easier for the
Yeah,
loaner,
the lender, yeah,
the lender to go and get the money from
right,
A instead of the guarantor.
yeah.
So what legal force does the guarantor now have to go and get the money from the borrower?
Well, the guarantor can refuse to pay unless it's been demonstrated to him that the borrower is not only is not paying, but doesn't have the assets to pay.
So even though the lender had a statement in there that.
No, if the lender has an ironclad contract
Yeah.
that he can collect from whoever he wants to first,
Right.
so then the standard opinion is he can go to the RA first with the argument that it's more convenient. Yeah, but there apparently, and it's a little bit, I have to say, again, this is a little bit unclear from his language. He says that even if that's stipulated in the contract, you still have to go to the borrower first. It's just that if it was a verbal declaration that was added at the time of the signing with witnesses, so then even that opinion requires, that it was stated, I can go to whomever I want, and there was no contesting of that statement. So then he doesn't have to go to the borrower first.
But as the guarantor, if for whatever reason, the lender now comes to you and says, I want money. What avenue does the guarantor have of getting the money from the lender?
There'd have to be,
That's on the
there'd have
box.
to be like a second star
That's what I'm thinking.
at the backup in case the guy's
Yeah,
doesn't pay, and it
Doesn't.
goes right to the, come line, gets the money, and the guy who lent the money is happy, and the guy who was the borrower was like, thanks. Like, what
Right.
recourse, does he still have a complete close to pay? Like. It's not
Does
being
the borrower
clear,
still
we're
have to
not
pay?
being
Right,
clear.
right. What is the borrower's obligation to the
Yeah.
guarantor
right.
if the guarantor
Right.
pays on his
But
behalf?
but what's the-
Yeah,
So the guy gets
Is it
$1,000.
legally binding?
Everyone talks about guarantor's obligations, but there's also guarantor's rights, which means that if a guarantor fully pays the debt, he then has a right of subrogation, meaning stand in the shoes of the creditor, take over his position against the debtor.
Even though it's paid, it's
Even
like, it's
though-
so it's not paid.
Only if it's paid, so if the
Right.
guarantor pays it in full, he can then take an aside, it's just basically a subrogated right to say, I'm now your creditor, take the collateral, take the security from the creditor and go after the guarantor for the full
Right.
amount.
as a matter of fact, there may be situations that you could think of where there could be collusion between a lender and a guarantor.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's say the borrower has an asset, like a real estate asset, that the guarantor would love to get his hands on, right? And so, and he knows that and he doesn't want to sell it to him, but he knows the guy's needs money, so he's willing to act as a guarantor on the loan,
They have that as a collateral.
and they puts up the property as a collateral.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Well, if you know the guarantor is on the shoe.
So the bottom line is we haven't really seen that halacha. Like, what are the guarantor's rights once he's paid up?
Right.
I
And
think logically, it's completely, he's as though he is the lender now and he has to be.
well,
Yes,
here's the argument. What if the borrower says, wait a minute, I'm prepared to pay back the loan. What right did you as the guarantor have to pay in my stead? The guy didn't come to me yet.
Right.
In other words, you weren't an Arev Kablan, you were a guarantor. So yes, you have rights, but I have rights too as a borrower. And I have rights of first refusal. I have rights of, being given the opportunity to liquidate my assets before to pay it back.
100% correct. In fact, in law, there's lots of cases about that where the guarantor would, what they call voluntarily pay it before there's an obligation to pay it. And you lose your rights after that if you do that. Because like you say, the borrower may say, you were under no obligation to pay it yet, and I'm not paying you back. You know? It's called being officious.
Officious. Wow.
Another new word.
He's enthusiastically altruistic and
Yeah.
he's not obligated to do that.
Yeah, how often does that happen?
I can't imagine that happening.
Guy gets nervous, right? He says, I don't want, whatever, I got other
Yeah.
things coming up, I'm gonna pay it off, right? Like, whatever.
I don't know if my credit.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't.
Or let's say he would rather be in a position of a creditor than a guarantor. So
He wants
yeah.
the collateral, whatever that
Yeah.
might be.
That's right.
If he does it too early, he loses his right of subrogation.
It's like a vocabulary class.
Yeah.
Class.
Telling you, we're learning a lot of legal stuff.
Yeah.
Don't forget.
Wait till he starts with long Latin.
Okay. So this is, yeah, I mean, so you can definitely think of different situations where a guarantor can get himself into trouble.
It's pretty complicated.
I would have thought that it's interesting that a signed star without a transaction is not a binding document. That's like a sets
But the final.
sets a datum on the legality of promissory notes.
Yeah.
I guess the actual transfer of the money is the most important opinion of the whole thing, the actual.
Yeah, but I mean, let's say you write.
No, I hear,
Let's say you write a promissory note
Right.
with the intention that you're going to do something, right? And then
You go into a whole business deal and you're dependent on this money coming in and now the whole thing is.
But the promising note with the intention of doing something, and then you go, oh, I don't think I'm gonna do that anymore.
Yeah.
That promising note really holds true, but in the case of.
If it's already changed hands, yeah.
But that's the case of a loan. It's not so. It's.
Okay. So I think we'll hold it here for today.
So,
We'll have a share tomorrow. And then I'm gonna go away next week for the whole week. So take care, everybody. So we'll